Freud didn't merely invent psychoanalysis. He unearthed something far more perilous, a hidden map of female desire. Not the one detailed in textbooks, but the bleakest, most forbidden version. His finding was so unsettling that even his own disciples attempted to censor it. Today, you will witness what they sought to conceal. Not theories, not poetic language, but the raw, disturbing truth about what genuinely governs women, where ethics and reason lose all influence. Imagine if I said that Freud's most explosive and primarily censored texts hold the key to decoding female conduct at its most profound level. Behind a century of politically correct discourse lies a psychological map clarifying everything, from hypergamy to emotional manipulation. And if grasping this hidden map gives you an almost unjust advantage in love, power, and life, then prepare yourself. Because what you are about to observe is psychology in its purest form. Most men fail to comprehend women, not because they lack intellect, but because they were told falsehoods, soul delusions masked as truth. Be yourself. Treat her like royalty. Love conquers all. Concurrently, divorces flood the courts, loneliness spreads like a plague, and generations of men drift like specters through relationships they cannot grasp. What if the solutions had always been accessible, interred in the writings of a man the world sought so hard to obliterate? Contrary to common belief, Freud's most hazardous work was not about the Oedipus complex or the anal stage. It was a sequence of private lectures, subsequently banned, on what he termed the psychosexual dynamics of female choice. These were not lectures for the public. They were hushed gatherings in the candlelit chambers of Vienna, where Freud's words bore the gravity of sin and revelation. Each phrase felt like unlocking a forbidden door in the human psyche. Every concept challenged the ethical fabric of society. He dissected the female subconscious with an accuracy that would frighten even contemporary psychologists. He was not describing conduct. He was dissecting instinct itself. The elements that even women refused to see within themselves, Freud documented them, clinically, coldly, without pity. But his notations were never intended for the public. They were concealed, buried, censored by his own disciples. Because what he unearthed did not serve advancement, it served power. And power in the wrong hands, he cautioned, could reshape human intimacy. Because what Freud uncovered was not theory, it was pattern. He observed that beneath every display of affection, beneath every smile, every quiet moment, there was a concealed transaction of power. Desire, he grasped, was a form of strategy, not sentiment. One case was prominent, the wolf woman of Vienna, a lady of the aristocracy, the very picture of grace and moral purity. But behind closed doors, she played with her admirers like quarry. She would grace them with warmth one evening, then disappear into silence for weeks. Her non-appearance became a weapon, her unpredictability a charm. Freud traced the origin back to her childhood. At 6 years of age, she had observed her mother methodically dismantle her father's reputation. She learned young that power is not seized. It is given. And women, Freud grasped, are instructed from the start to gain control not through coercion, but through perception. To wield gentleness as a weapon, emotion as an instrument. He wrote, "What she denies becomes her weapon. What she withholds, her throne." That one line altered everything. It was the instant Freud ceased studying insanity and began studying feminine strategy. He started to view attraction not as romance, but as a negotiation between dominance and submission. He found that female desire was not a matter of selecting between a good man or a bad man. It was a magnetic polarity, a perpetual tension between safety and peril, comfort and chaos, adoration and conquest, a paradox that every woman bears but few concede. And this polarity, once activated, transforms even the calmest woman into the most unpredictable creature on earth. It was not morality she adhered to. It was the pulse of the narrative. Because deep down, every woman Freud discovered doesn't merely seek love. She seeks narrative tension, a man who makes her feel, not one who simply remains. That insight terrified the world, because it implied desire could be engineered, that love could be built like hypnosis. And Freud's private lectures were nothing short of the blueprint for control. A century later, modern research now validates it. Studies in behavioral psychology show that emotional unpredictability activates the same reward circuits that manage obsession, addiction, and longing. In plain terms, what Freud sensed through instinct, neuroscience now charts with scanners and blood flow. Freud saw it first. Love is not blind, it is wired. In 2012, the University of Texas unveiled a striking truth. Women are 52% more likely to engage with a man who exhibits controlled unpredictability. A small gesture, a postponed reply, an unexpected silence. All of it generates a surge of curiosity, then longing, because predictability is comfort, but unpredictability is power. Another study, published in the Journal of Social Psychology, discovered that women perceive a man as more appealing if they believe that other women desire him, even if, objectively, he is less physically attractive. This is not coincidence. It is evolutionary programming. What she observes others wanting, her brain designates as valuable. It is ancient instinct, the survival mechanism of selective desire. Women were never attracted to men for who they are, but for what their desirability signals to others. Most men are playing checkers while women are playing four-dimensional chess. Every move she makes is a message, a test, a calibration. She is not reacting emotionally, she is evaluating patterns. But here is the good news. Once you have seen the chessboard, you can never feign ignorance. Once you discern the code, you cease being the pawn and start becoming the player. The question is, do you wish to remain blind, or do you want the map? Because Freud eventually admitted that there existed a second layer of female psychology, so opaque, so potent, that he hesitated to even document it. He called it das Schattenzyklus, the shadow cycle. As an unseen mechanism, a hidden force directing nearly every decision a woman makes, without her even knowing it. It is not a conscious strategy, it is biological poetry. Desire and fear, reward and risk, interlaced into one instinctual pattern. He called it the shadow cycle, an unconscious program that controls attraction beyond logic, morality, or even a woman's own self-perception. It functions silently, like gravity, always drawing her toward the one thing she should not want. And herein lies the disturbing revelation. What a woman claims she wants, and what she actually responds to, are frequently polar opposites. She might describe the perfect man as kind, patient, understanding, yet fall in love with the one who makes her feel chaos, thrill, danger. Her conscious mind seeks comfort. Her subconscious desires the storm. Men who learn to activate this circuit do not just seduce. They reprogram. They awaken the concealed architecture of her instinct, a switch buried beneath layers of logic and morality. When activated, attraction becomes automatic. The most shocking illustration of this phenomenon came in 1901 with the tale of the Countess and her lover. Freud received a visit from a noblewoman who had deserted her wealthy husband, a man of status and comfort, to be with an uneducated commoner. It was a scandal among the elite. How could she forsake luxury, security, and privilege for a man beneath her social standing? The truth was harsh. Her husband had become predictable. He idolized her, followed her every whim, and perpetually sought her approval. He was gentle, perfect, and thus invisible. But the lover, he disregarded her. He would vanish for days. He did not worship her. He confounded her. His charm was not in beauty, but in his complete indifference, and this indifference incensed her. It awakened her shadow cycle, the subconscious addiction to emotional polarity. Freud observed the same pattern repeating perpetually. Women detesting submissive men, yet obsessing over those who challenged them. the ones who remained calm in her tempests, the ones who refused to yield. Why? Because the female subconscious does not desire proffered love, as it craves the conquest, the earning, not the receiving. When love becomes simple, the story dies. When she must battle for it, it becomes oxygen. Freud understood this centuries ago, and modern research now validates it. Neuroscientists found that the female brain releases dopamine not in the presence of affection, but in the expectation of it. Desire is not satisfaction, it is suspense. And suspense, when controlled, is the purest form of power. A woman wants to earn a man's attention, not obtain it freely. This is the paradox that fuels her desire, because what she earns, she values. What she is given without effort, she silently discards. As modern studies confirm this. In 2017, the Journal of Evolutionary Psychology revealed that women feel considerably more attraction toward men who display selective emotional unavailability. It is not coldness that attracts her. It is control. When your energy cannot be readily accessed, it signals something ancient in her subconscious. Dominance through discipline. In simple terms, the less you appear to need her, the more she starts to need you. Because scarcity generates value, and what is rare is worshipped. But this truth bears a dark side. S. Freud identified what he termed the testing mechanism. Unconsciously, women provoke, seek weakness, and create conflict just to determine if a man breaks under pressure. These tests are not cruelty. They are instinct. She needs to sense your emotional frame before she can trust your energy. Those who do lose all worth in her eyes. Those who remain unmoved, however, activate something primitive. That calm detachment, that masculine stillness acts like gravity to her chaotic tempests. Cleopatra understood this long before Freud. She seduced Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, not through submission, but through challenge, manipulation, and demands that they demonstrate their dominance. Her allure was not beauty. It was control wrapped in chaos. It was this exact tension that drove them mad for her. She gave them glimpses of paradise, then drew them back into confusion. Each absence became desire. Each return, relief. That cycle, that rhythm, was the spell itself. The lesson is simple. Chivalry no longer seduces. The good guys do not finish last. They never even begin the game. Because she does not crave kindness, she craves polarity. And polarity requires distance. Freud believed he had probed the depths of human desire until he discovered a third level. A psychological trigger so potent it could foster an addiction in a woman so deep she would not even grasp its origin. He called it the addiction protocol. And it was not crude manipulation. It was mastery over the instinctive mechanisms of female desire, the very circuits in her brain that determine who she dreams about and who she forgets. One striking example, the singer and the poet. In 1905, Freud documented the case of a famous opera singer who forsook her career, her wealth, even her family for a poor writer who treated her with calculated indifference. She was adored by thousands, yet enslaved by one. When asked why, she replied simply, "When he is with me, I feel alive. When he leaves, I feel empty." Freud's diagnosis: intermittent reinforcement. The writer did not flood her with attention. He gave it in small, unpredictable doses. He mastered rhythm, and that unpredictability functioned like a drug. Modern neuroscience confirms what Freud surmised. A 2014 Harvard study showed that the human brain reacts more intensely to unpredictable rewards than to constant attention. This is why dopamine peaks not when you receive, but when you anticipate. It is the same principle that makes slot machines addictive and certain relationships impossible to escape. Because her mind starts pursuing the next high, the next message, the next sign, the next appearance. You become the variable reward, and her emotion becomes the gamble. The secret lies in controlling the rhythm. Give too much, she tires and withdraws. Give just enough at the right moment, and she becomes obsessed. Her nervous system bonds not with affection, but with the roller coaster of tension and relief. But Freud did not stop there. He went even deeper. He began to suspect that behind this emotional addiction was something greater, a transformation of identity itself. Because when desire becomes dependence, it is no longer love, it is reprogramming. Freud discovered that women do not just crave attention. They crave emotional contrast, the rise and fall, the fire and the silence, a rhythm of warmth and withdrawal that keeps her feeling alive. In a controversial experiment, he presented a group of women two profiles of men, one who was always affectionate and consistent, and another who fluctuated between warmth and coldness. The result? 73% of the women selected the unpredictable man, even knowing his behavior was unstable. Why? Because stability soothes, but tension electrifies. Predictability is peace, but peace kills passion. Good men offer steady affection, no highs, no lows, no emotion. But the man who shifts between presence and mystery, between warmth and distance, literally rewires her nervous system to crave him even more. This is not manipulation. It is biology. Her brain connects uncertainty to significance. The more emotional variation you generate, a bigger meaning her subconscious assigns to you. The great seducers of history understood this instinctively. Casanova would vanish for weeks, only to return with an unforgettable letter. Each absence built pressure. Each return exploded like release. His silence made his words potent. His distance made his presence divine. Napoleon wrote to Josephine letters filled with both longing and anger, devotion and control. He made her feel everything. Love, jealousy, desire, fear. And that emotional whiplash became her addiction. So how can you apply this today? Break the pattern of predictability. If you always respond to her messages immediately, slow down. Let silence become part of your language. If you constantly suggest dates, space them out. Let curiosity replace routine. Let her wonder. Let her miss your absence. Create emotional contrasts. Be kind, but never complacent. Be committed, but never permanent. Show warmth, but let your mystery breathe. Make her lose your attention, because only then will she fight to reclaim it. The goal is not to make her doubt your interest, but to make her desire your presence as something rare and exceptional. Because in every great seduction, there comes a moment when something changes, when her curiosity becomes need and her interest becomes compulsion. Freud described this in his mostly censored notebooks as psychosexual imprinting, a phenomenon where the bond becomes so deeply rooted that no logic, no advice, no distance can erase it. He realized that when emotion repeats with intensity, the body itself learns the pattern. It is no longer choice. It is reflex. She stops loving you as a person. She starts craving you as a state of consciousness. One of his most chilling cases involved a woman deeply attached to a man who openly mistreated her. She was given countless opportunities to leave. She refused every time. When Freud asked her why, she gave a haunting reply. When I am with him, I feel like myself. It was not Stockholm Syndrome. It was something far deeper. A biological anchor forged through emotion. And modern science now confirms what Freud once only intuited. Brain imaging reveals that love and fear activate the same neural pathways. So when she feels both, the attachment becomes unbreakable. That is the dark paradox of desire. It is not peace that bonds her, as it is contrast. MRI scans now reveal what Freud only sensed a century ago. That passionate love activates the same brain regions as cocaine addiction. It's the same circuitry that fuels euphoria, obsession, and withdrawal. The same reward system that binds the addict to the drug binds lovers to each other. And this state can be anchored through a series of intense emotional experiences that blend pleasure and pain. Freud realized that the human mind remembers not comfort, but contrast. It does not cling to peace. It clings to the storm that made it feel alive. As the process begins with what psychologists call the justification of effort. When a person invests deep emotional energy in a relationship, especially through conflict, uncertainty, or pain, the brain rewrites the story. It convinces itself that the reward must be worth the struggle. Suffering becomes proof of love. The more chaos she endures, the deeper her attachment grows. A 2016 Yale study found that women who experience intense emotional turmoil early in a relationship form significantly stronger bonds than those who experience a perfect linear romance. Because the mind confuses intensity with importance, it mistakes adrenaline for meaning. Freud also spoke of a point of no return, a critical period between 3 and 6 months of intense interaction, during which attraction crosses from psychological to physiological. If you manage to cross this threshold, her body associates your presence with a feeling of vivid aliveness. If you fail, no future attempt will ever leave the same mark. It is the moment where emotion becomes memory, where your absence begins to hurt more than your presence heals. The masters of seduction throughout history understood how to provoke this transformation. Casanova would oscillate between ecstasy and fear, guiding his lovers through midnight gondola rides down the dark canals of Venice. Between whispered poetry and the thrill of the unknown, each heartbeat became a ritual, each breath a fragment of memory carved into her body. These extreme emotions leave a neurological imprint. They engrave identity through sensation. So how can you use this without becoming toxic? Become synonymous with intensity. Avoid the dull rhythm of routine. Create sensory and emotional experiences she will never forget. When she is with you, let her feel both comfort and chaos, safety and suspense in a single moment, because it is in that paradox that memory is born. Harness the power of contrast. Evoke both euphoria and depth in the same night. Let her laughter echo beside silence. Let warmth meet mystery. Let her nervous system never quite rest, because what never rests, never forgets. Never fall into complacency. Once your presence becomes predictable, the imprint begins to fade. The spell dissolves when repetition replaces rhythm. In the end, men who leave a lasting mark on a woman are not those who give her the most, but those who make her feel everything. They turn emotion into ritual and ritual into memory. Freud understood. At this point, it is no longer seduction, but emotional reprogramming. A transfer of identity, not affection. When a woman crosses that threshold, she does not just love you for who you are, she loves the version of herself that awakens in your presence. You become the mirror of her vitality, the symbol of her most electric state. That is the true power. She no longer chases you. She chases the feeling of herself that you ignite. And once she associates your presence with that state, it can take years, sometimes decades, to break the bond. And that power, Freud concluded, belongs only to men who master 3 weapons. Emotional intensity, which floods her system with adrenaline and dopamine. Contrast, the delicate rhythm between warmth and mystery, closeness and distance. Presence, the stillness that makes every silence magnetic. Because once you learn to control the rhythm, you no longer chase connection, you command it. Sensory memory is limited to what is intense, to those unforgettable moments that leave a mark beneath the skin. It remembers storms, not sunlight. It clings to the high voltage of emotion, not the comfort of peace. Once these impulses are activated, there is no turning back. She no longer desires you. She desires the state you awaken in her. You become her emotional drug, the mirror of her own aliveness. And here, Freud captured a truth that society still refuses to face. Eternal love stories are not built on sweetness, they are built on intensity. Passion cannot survive routine, and the men who become unforgettable are not the ones who make promises, but the ones who provoke transformation. They change her chemistry, not her opinion. They leave fingerprints on her nervous system. So remember, do not try to be the best man for her. Be the only experience that no one else can replicate. Be the moment she cannot recreate, the silence that still haunts her. Because once she has tasted it, everything else will feel dull, lifeless, incomplete. If this message has shaken you, if it has struck something deep within, ask yourself, do you want more content that disturbs, that breaks the mold, that cuts through illusions? Because this kind of raw truth does not survive on its own. Here, there are no filters, no comforting lies. Only ideas that challenge your beliefs and pull you out of the coma of modern living. You were not meant to drift through life half awake. You were built to see what others cannot bear to. If you want this voice to remain free, if you want to stand among those who refuse convenient lies, click the link in the description. You can also support in simpler ways by liking, sharing, or subscribing to this channel. Not as a gesture, but as a statement, a rebellion against the noise. It is simple, but powerful. Each click, each share, is a strike against deception. A step closer to a generation of lucid, strong, and untamed men. Men who see through comfort, men who reject manipulation, men who choose clarity over convenience. Convenience lies. Here, we open our eyes. And we rise together, not as followers, but as a movement of awakened minds. Because the world does not change when men get louder. It changes when men get clear. And that clarity is your revolution.